You know what bothers me the most about a one-row buttonhole? That is the cast on never looks as good as the cast off. But I found a method so that everything looks similar. As you can see, it looks almost the same. And the good thing, that's why I chose fisherman's rib. The ribs, they line up perfectly, because usually you know that scenario when you do your one-row buttonhole, everything bunches and the stitches never line up perfectly. And as you can see here, it's just perfect. And how you do this, I'll show you right now. Okay, first of all, we have to determine where we want our buttonhole. Usually it will tell you in your pattern how many stitches to cast off, but in ribbing it's very important that we have symmetry. So we want to choose the exact location, and I usually like these rib stitches, like one rib and another rib, and in between we want to cast off our stitches so it looks equal. So it's easier for you. I prefer to use open stitch markers and mark those stitches so I don't get lost when I'm in the process of binding of stitches. All of us experienced that already. You're in the middle of the bind off, maybe you have to bind off 40 stitches, and you in the middle of it you just kind of get lost and oh my god, how many stitches did I bound off already? So this makes it really clear. The removable markers, you take them off once you're done with the project. Let me just close this. Okay, now we know where we want our buttonholes. So we have one here. This stitch we don't want to bind off, and the same thing goes for that one. We don't want to bind off these two, and in between we have, in our example, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 stitches that will be bound off. Okay, and this is how I do it. Okay, as you can see, we're working in fisherman's rib, and I prefer to do it on the right side of the work. In fisherman, that is very convenient because we don't have the yarn overs yet, and it's much easier to bind these stitches off. Okay, first of all, the edge stitch, I choose like always a knit stitch, so I get this kind of garter ridge. Okay, next stitch is a knit stitch. If you work in your pattern, just do your pattern. It even works for knit 1, purl 1, or knit 2, purl 2, doesn't matter. Okay, and this time we're just doing the fisherman's rib, and we work to the point where another 2 stitches, and here we are. This is the first rib where the whole thing begins. So we don't get a sloppy bind off, and sometimes you can see it here, it will create something really sloppy. If you pick up stitches later on, that's not a problem, but we want a really clean edge, as you can see here. So what we do is we're going to perform a KFB, knit front and back. So what we do is we knit the stitch, we leave it on our needle and knit it through the back loop. So we created an extra stitch. Don't pull it too tight yet, because what we're going to do is in this case it's a purl. I purl that stitch, and now I'm just going to take that extra stitch that I just created and pull it over that purl stitch. We didn't bind off a stitch yet, as you can see, because the stitch is still intact, but we created this, I don't know how you call it, but it's like a little bridge, so it's kind of sturdy and looks really good. So now we have a base to cast off our stitches. From now on, we won't knit the stitches on the left needle. I drop my working yarn, I go as if to knit, as if to purl, pick up the stitch and pull the stitch before over that one stitch. One stitch bound off. And I continue in the same fashion. Next stitch, the right needle, pull it over, next stitch, and I think you get a sense of what we're doing here. And we keep on binding off the stitches. The working yarn is still on the right hand side, and we're getting closer to the other marker. Okay, it's a bit unusual to bind off stitches like this because you don't knit the stitches, but you get used to it. Next stitch, pull it over. Next stitch, you pull it over. And so on. You work as many stitches, of course, as your pattern tells you. It could be anywhere between 3, 12, 20 stitches, whatever you want to do. So this is where we want to end. So then next stitch, and you might think if you don't have a marker, you'll be finished because this is the rib and you start working from there. But we have still this stitch, the purl stitch, and it's still intact because you see there's still a stitch on it. So we have to use the next stitch as well. Take it over and pull it over. And as you can see, the rib is still intact because the stitch is still there. We just moved that stitch over. And what we're going to do now, we're going to put this stitch back on the left needle and we turn our work. And we're still on the same row. So it's still the one-row buttonhole. What we're going to do next is we're going to cast on stitches. And this is a crochet hook, and I'm going to cast on my new stitches with the crochet hook because it makes this beautiful cast on. Okay, pick up my working yarn, and do you see the stitch below that stitch? I'm going to insert my needle there, grab the yarn, pull the yarn through, and I created a loop on my crochet hook. I didn't cast on a stitch yet, but I'm just gonna pull the yarn through and bring back the yarn, and you can see I created a new stitch. So what we're gonna do in the same fashion, we cast on 9 stitches plus 1, and the plus 1 we're just gonna use to pull it over this stitch to create the same we did on the other side to create this really firm edge of our buttonhole. So, and whatever, if you only did a 3 stitch buttonhole, you cast on 3 plus 1. Okay, here we go. We always move the yarn back to the back side of the needle, catch the yarn, pull it through, go back, try to get this out of the way a little bit, and grab the yarn. Oops. And sometimes, now here we go. Go back, pull it through, you go back, pull it through, and so on until you cast on all the stitches you need. Let's check. This is the rib stitch. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches. We need 2 more to complete the cast on, and then we need 1 more to bind off. Okay, once again, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 stitches now on the needle, and this is our 10th stitch. We're gonna put this stitch back, we twist the loop and put it back on the left needle. Now, be careful not to pull it too tight because we want to pass it over the other stitch, and sometimes it can be really a hassle to do that if we pull that stitch too tight. What we're going to do, we're just going to take this stitch back to the right hand needle, and then we insert our needle and we identify the last stitch we did. It's here, as you can see. Oops, I got it. And now I pull it over, pull it tight. Oops. Now I create a twisted the whole thing. Okay, here we go. Now, as you can see, we're in pattern. We cast it on our stitches, and now we're ready to go. Next stitch is a brioche. I lift it and create yarn over. I knit it and yarn over. And now on the way back, the newly cast on stitches, we knit them as they appear. If you do just a 1-by-1 rib, of course you follow your pattern. You go knit 1, purl 1, or knit 2, purl 2, whatever pattern you have. In this instance, because we have a fisherman's rib, we have to deal with our yarn overs, as you can see here. So the newly cast on stitches, they don't have a yarn over yet because we just created them. So what we do, we just gonna knit them as they appear. So this is, the last one was a brioche knit, then this should be a purl stitch. The next stitch is a knit stitch, purl, a knit. The beginning can be a little bit tight, but when we go on in our pattern, it's going to get looser and looks really nice. The knit stitch, a purl, knit, and a purl stitch, a knit. It's going to be exciting if we meet the pattern on the other side. So this is the purl, this is a knit, and this is going to be a purl, and voila, we met the pattern because this is our brioche knit, and we're back pattern, and this is the second row, the wrong side of a one-row buttonhole. I'm just going to finish the row for you, and here we go. As you can see, you hardly can even see it if you don't open it. So you just continue working in your pattern, and there you are. Take off your little markers and you're ready to go. If you like to know more about the different options with buttonholes, I created a little playlist for you. Check it out and have fun knitting.